gummy bear.
It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for March 1st, 2024 for the next hour or so. Let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, a newly acquired Microsoft studio is already leaving Microsoft because this industry is a circus. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host to Game Mess Mornings. It's Timur Hussein, everybody. Tam, how are you doing?
I am okay. I came so close to trying to cut you off and doing that intro before you. So close.
I was loading up the page and I was scrolling up as fast as I could because I cannot commit it to memory. I read it off the page. So if you would have jumped in and done it, I would have been grateful.
It's the internet. I am tired, and there is an expert here. Let's do this.
There it is. He got it in one, everybody. Dregsday, this episode, we're going to mostly cleaning up the news from the rest of the week. There's a whole bunch of big stories. There's some Fallout. We'll get to all of that here pretty soon.
Oh, we got some Fallout stories? Hell yeah. Finally.
Yeah. Mostly, though, Tam. I'm just glad you're here. Glad back from traveling. Glad you could make the show. How are you feeling about video games?
You know, I've been playing a lot of Balatro, and Balatro is fantastic.
I saw you sign in on Steam when I was on my Steam Deck. I was playing something, and then I'm like, Tam, Balatro. I'm like, oh yeah, he's getting in there.
I've been playing that game I've been playing it on multiple different devices at the same time.
Hell yeah, okay.
I am going wherever I go. Balatro comes with me. At my desk, I've got it running on a monitor, like on the Steam main. When I move away from here in this room, I'll play on Steam Deck. If I go to the bedroom, I've got a Roger Ally there just waiting for Balatro.
So you're a true sicko.
I am a full sicko. I am full sicko. I have been on the toilet playing Balatro many times over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I will go to sit on the potty and I'll start playing, and then it's happened multiple times. I'll just say twice where it's like the kids or my wife are like, "Where are you?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm coming. Sorry, I did disappear for close to 30 minutes.
You should create a custom Joker image of the card, and when the hover over and it just says "in toilet." 2 times multiplier.
Balatro is a very good game. This year's going the way it's going with games, nonstop, one game to another. I'm just loving so much stuff this year that's coming out, which is why all the news about layoffs and studio closures is such a bummer, because gaming is so good right now. It feels like so disconnected from the reality on the ground there. But, let's get into it and start by explaining what we do here. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can also listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings, or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with Skylanders and Crash Bandicoot studio Toys for Bob is leaving Activision and going independent. This is from Chris Scullion over at VGC. Skylanders and Crash Bandicoot developer Toys for Bob has announced plans to go independent. The California studio was acquired by Activision in 2005 and has worked on a variety of Skylanders, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, and Call of Duty games since then. However, in a new statement released today by studio heads Paul Yan and Avery Lodato, it was announced that the developers will be going it alone. Over the years, we've inspired love, joy, and laughter for the inner child in all gamers, the statement reads. We've pioneered new IP and hardware technologies in Skylanders. We raised the bar for best-in-class remasters in Spyro Reignited Trilogy. We've taken Crash Bandicoot to new, innovative, critically acclaimed new heights. With the same enthusiasm and passion, we believe that now is the time to take the studio and our future games to the next level. This opportunity allows us to return to our roots of being a small and nimble studio. The statement goes on to say, with Jan and Lodato, to say that despite the decision to go independent, they're exploring a possible partnership back with Microsoft. And while we're in the early days of developing our next new game and a ways away from making new announcements, our team is excited to develop new stories, new chapters, and new gameplay experiences. Our friends at Activision and Microsoft have been extremely supportive of our new direction, and we're confident that we will continue to work closely together as part of our future. So just to run through the quick history here, Toys for Bob, like I said, was acquired 2005, has been by Activision. Activision has now been acquired by Microsoft. So Toys for Bob joined Microsoft under the Activision acquisition. In the recent round of layoffs, Toys for Bob was hit. The studio, the offices were closed. And at the time it was like, well, the studio is going to remain around. They're going to go kind of fully support, not fully support, but fully remote. And it was like kind of some confusion there. A few weeks later now, they have spun off to be an independent studio, no longer part of Microsoft. I had a hard time understanding why exactly this needed to happen. Tam, do you have any ideas?
No, I wonder if it's a case of. I imagine this doesn't happen quickly, but in my mind, I think it's like they do the layoffs, and at either before or after, concurrently, the discussions were happening. And I think there was a case where Microsoft was presented with an opportunity to offload a studio, save a lot of money, which is what they want to do, and from a PR perspective, look good. And they took it. I instead of cutting the entire crew,
right?
If the crew comes to them and is like, let us go, and we all of us will leave. And Microsoft is like, okay. And then they can be like, oh yeah, we worked with Toys for Bob to help them gain their independence, and Microsoft looks good at this. So I don't know why, but I don't understand why you would cut people and then let them go, though.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely confusing.
Yeah, at that point it becomes weird, where it's like, did they need to? Was that part of the process for the remaining Toys for Bob people? They needed to trim down before they did this independence thing? Maybe. I would think that would be pretty not great for the people who were cut to be like, oh, we got cut and now you're going to be in this position, which is far more favorable. That's rough. But yeah.
Yeah, like I said, when I first heard this, it was hard to figure out exactly what was going on. And it's well, I mean, if you look at it through the lens of Microsoft as a corporation that is looking for growth, then it starts to make some more sense, because it's at first they were growing by acquiring things, and now that's probably going to slow down. So now the growth is going to come from saving money. And so through that lens, because when I was first looking at it, it's well, how does this make sense for an Xbox company that is looking to make video games? Isn't Toys for Bob an ideal fit for making, you do now own Skylanders, you do now own Crash Bandicoot, you've owned Banjo-Kazooie for a long time. Toys for Bob is a great fit for any of those and more. Could make something new. You have a Game Pass that would be a great fit for any number of family games, games that appeal to children and families as a whole. Big 3D platformers that have that Nintendo banks on. You should get a couple of those in your lineup. And when I'm okay, so now you're just going to let this studio go off on their own, and yeah, maybe you'll partner with them, but just seems like, why not keep them around and take advantage of this team that has a lot of knowledge? And it's it's because it's not really about, when a company like Microsoft is making decisions about what they're doing, it is not like a sports team putting together a roster, the best, we're going to put together the best roster to get on the field and win the game. It's no, it's just about the numbers, what goes up, and by getting rid of a team, that is going to look better in terms of growth for the amount of money that you're bringing in, because you're spending less money paying this team. And I don't know, but that bums me out too. I hope that this is the best case scenario, as opposed to, like you said, if they were going to get close down the team, this does make Microsoft look better in that they enable this studio to continue to exist. But a part of me is just what, I still feel like I don't really understand what happened here.
Yeah, it feels like there's a catch here that we don't see. Or also it just not knowing the thinking and the kind of rationale for it is unsettling in a industry and that is constantly, doing the worst thing possible to developers. So I think that everyone's built up a level of skepticism and cynicism around every move. So even when ostensibly for the people at Toys for Bob, this is a good thing, but we'll never be able to take it as on face value until we really, really understand why this happened. And honestly, I think it's a good thing overall. That studio being free of like looming danger at all times. Being at a company that needs to aspire to infinite growth is like must be freeing. At the very least, it seems like they have they're in control of their own destiny. So sink or swim, they'll be in charge of the decisions that result in that outcome, which I think is the most that developers kind of at this point want. They don't want to get suddenly. I watched TikTok yesterday of like a group of people who are representing a union at like one of those American local town meetings where
Mhm.
everyone's standing there. And the dude was given a speech, and as he was given a speech, his colleague walked up and was like, "We just got laid off."
Oh, Jesus.
And that is like that is that is the kind of situation where it feels like a lot of people are, where it's like you could be just doing the best work you ever have done, and it is all critically acclaimed. You still get laid off.
Yep.
Like is and that is must be terrifying. So for Toys for Bob, at least they know. Like, and hopefully the leadership
Right.
there is good enough to, if that happens, or like they're more communicative and transparent with the people there, as opposed to a corporation like Microsoft would be.
Yep. It's and especially if they are able to make this partnership work, because that guarantees some investment and income. The frightening thing of going independent right now is there is no money out there. No one's investing in games right now. Everyone's frightened, so all that money's evaporated. And if investors are putting money into anything, it's relationships that they already previously had that have paid off, and they hope will pay off again. And so having the studio kind of come out and be like, hey, we don't have any relationships with the money people because we've been inside a corporate structure for the last 20 years. Where do we start on that? Well, right now is the worst time to possibly start on that. So if they're able to make this partnership work, I do think that this will work out great for Toys for Bob. I hope that we don't find out later that dissolved and so the studio was unable to get funding or something like that, because it is a gauntlet out there if you were trying to make that happen right now.
Yeah, and like at the very least, it gets them out of like the Call of Duty mines, which is almost certainly what they would have been put to work on.
Yep.
And like they're a very talented studio that unfortunately doesn't get the credit it deserves for basically bringing back Crash Bandicoot in a
Yep.
fun way, and a bunch of other titles as well. I'm glad that they're not going to be put to work on military shooters, and they can at least be like, we've got this dumb looking animal that we want to work with that isn't Crash Bandicoot, but is similar, or whatever.
Yeah, Crash Bandicoot 4 was them. That's a great game. That Spyro Reignited trilogy, also fantastic. For what it is, I'm not a huge Spyro fan, but what they did on it was great work, and it was very noticeable. I hope that this, just personally, like greedily, I hope this results in them actually partnering and making that Banjo-Kazooie game. I would like that. I'm a Banjo-Kazooie fan. And I hope that studio is able to grow and thrive, because I've liked Toys for Bob for a long time. Speaking of Toys for Bob, Crash Team Rumble, one of the games that they were working on, the support for that is going to end after 9 months as the developer has split from Activision. This comes from Liv Neon at Eurogamer. Crash Team Rumble will have no further content updates after the 4th of March, less than 9 months after its launch. The strategic platformer MOBA launched on the 20th of June, 2023 on PS4, PS5, Xboxes, and I don't know, is it on PC? Maybe it's just the consoles. Since then, it's had 3 seasons of new content, the latest being a crossover with Spyro the Dragon. There will be no further seasons. However, per an in-game news update spotted by players of Crash Team Rumble, as of yet, there's been no official announcement from publisher Activision itself. This final update to Crash Team Rumble will be a free 500 tier battle pass that includes all content from each season and event rewards. That's pretty cool. Just have this thing that basically, if you are someone who is continuing to play this game, you'll have a battle pass that just goes on forever, essentially, or up to level 500. That's neat. I'm glad they're able to make something happen with this instead of just being like, we're pulling the plug and we're getting out of here.
Yeah, that's a good shout. I mean, like it does. A lot of that fan base is probably going to be there because they expect it to be a living game for the foreseeable future. So
the average
I imagine
person, for sure.
Yeah, it's going to take a hit once people realize that it's not. But at the very least, like trying to make it seem like trying to make it be a game that has some legs and future in it for those that still remain, and can like almost come to terms with the fact that it's ending, but do it on their own terms and like still carry on playing and kind of wean themselves off of it to a degree. I feel like that's a good move.
Yeah, and it's that game always felt like doomed from the beginning. No one was asking for it necessarily. People played it like, hey, this is fun. I'm having a good time. Many people did have a good time with it, but even those people were not like coming back to it regularly. It was never going to support the amount of players it needed to have all of that infrastructure make sense. So the fact that it's getting something of a dignified ending here, that's a win in itself, in a world where a lot of times these things could just feel like, hey, we had sky high expectations. Felt like by the time this game was out, everyone knew what the expectations should be, even though, we saw it like Summer Game Fest. It was like they were pushing it. They were trying to make it happen. And I guess you never know. You roll the dice. But it felt like once it was out, we all knew that this was going to be the ending eventually, and probably not too long after release. So to hear it's 9 months later, no one's surprised. We all get it. Everyone involved gets it. These games are just competing with way too much these days. And you have to be able to take over the world with your live service game if you want a chance. You kind of can't be like just some little thing that no one really understands the appeal of.
Yeah.
Borderlands studio Gearbox is reportedly closer than ever to being sold by Embracer Group. This is from Chris Scullion at VGC. Gearbox could be closer than ever to being sold off by its parent company, Embracer Group, according to a new report. Sources have reportedly told Kotaku that Gearbox CEO Randy Pitchford held a town hall meeting with staff this week and told them that a decision has been made regarding the studio's future, with more information to be shared in March. According to the report, Pitchford has been telling staff for months that Gearbox's three options were to stay with Embracer, get sold to another company, or buy itself out and become independent. Kotaku claims that the decision has been made to sell Gearbox to another company and that a deal is being finalized. Refusing to confirm or deny the report, Pitchford told Kotaku, "I'm delighted that what we might be up to is interesting enough to people that you might want to make a story about us for your readers. As always, we will be thrilled to share whenever we have projects to announce or news to share as we work hard towards our mission to entertain the world." Yeah, this is something that's been in the works for a while. Been hearing rumblings about this. After the news that yesterday Saber Interactive was able to buy itself out with the help of investors for $500 million, it was like pretty clear, like at the very least, Gearbox was going to do something like that. But Gearbox is probably valuable enough that someone would want to buy it. And I bet that is, if they could make it happen, 2K would want to just get Gearbox so they could shore up Borderlands, a series that continues to do very well for both companies, right?
Yeah, it's really weird. Like it's wild that how big companies and small companies are currently going through the same thing. Like you would never expect Gearbox to be in this situation, but like I am very pro like them being escaping the embrace of Embracer. It is a best case scenario for a company like even Gearbox. I feel like the kind of like decentralization of IPs and studios that needs to happen is beginning with Gearbox, and they're a great studio that makes games that a lot of people love, and I feel like it's going to work out well if they do end up at a good place. My concern is who is interested in it. Like you said, they're a very valuable company. Who's got the clout to and the money to buy this?
Right.
And like the worry is they'll end up just with another, venture capital firm or something like that, or getting gobbled up by another major company that will inevitably do the same thing with them. Yeah.
And at the very least, though, even in that scenario, you mentioned like the death embrace of Embracer. The reporting is that Embracer was like going to Gearbox and being like, hey, whatever budgets you have, they're too much, cut them. So Gearbox was like, okay, we had a bunch of new cool games we were going to make. I guess we have to scrap those and just go make Borderlands 4 now, whichever one they're on now. And then Tiny Tina's Wonderland, like we're going to make that as well, but they had to like soft reboot it, I think also because of budgetary concerns. So it's like they were in a situation where even the stuff that was like the sure thing, the games that they knew were going to make them money were kind of in this weird spot. And then they were not able to try the new things that they seemingly were very excited about. So hopefully they're able to go to somewhere that will be like, hey, if we invest in Gearbox, we could get big returns because it's a studio that has had success and maybe can have even bigger hits in the future. And then again, if it's Take-Two that gets them, it's like, well, it's going to be Borderlands all the time probably because Take-Two has a big stake in that.
Yeah.
I do like Embracer is getting rid of Gearbox, Saber. These, I mean, Saber's not quite as big as Gearbox, but Saber's doing some of their other big games. They're releasing a new game for them, Expeditions, like this month. They're the ones that are working on the Knights of the Old Republic remake, and that's like they got a couple people still working on that apparently. They have another big game, I think. Warhammer. They're doing the Space Marine 2. So it's like that is like one of their big studios. This has got to be a sign, right, Tam, that Embracer is just going to get rid of everything. If they're getting rid of their biggest stuff, they're not going to just like try to keep all the small things, right?
I don't know, because I was thinking about this yesterday. Within the context of like how likely are they to get rid of or move Crystal Dynamics and thus this Legacy of Kain IP, which is something I'm always thinking about.
Of course, yes.
And like the thing, like Crystal Dynamics just started a pretty big Tomb Raider project, and there's also like another movie coming out or something.
Yeah, they
like
have like
that,
several like big deals
something?
with Amazon. Yeah, like I think Amazon's involved in the game as well, I think.
Yeah, so is that also like if we think about it on the same line of thinking where Embrace is getting rid of everything, do they offload Tomb Raider as well? Like I don't know about that, or are they just trying to kind of pull back and narrow down on just the things that they can see an immediate return on now? Because what they did was buy everything and then had no idea what the fuck to do with them. They were like, what do all these studios even do? So I guess Crystal Dynamics is the one that they know immediately, they have Tomb Raider coming. So maybe they keep hold of them. Obviously, in my preference would be like even Crystal Dynamics breaks out of that and is given some level of autonomy, or like does this in a way where they have longevity and are safe, which is asking a lot in this day and age.
Right.
But I don't think it's impossible. But I don't know if it's the fire sale on everything. I think it might be more a case of they're just slimming down, and they have to, because they need to focus on the stuff that they know is going to have some sort of immediate return. And
I think, I mean, what you described with Crystal Dynamics is that they already have the immediate return of these big deals with Amazon. So it's like that money's already there. They need to now kind of see that through. So you're right. Maybe they don't get rid of everything.
I also feel like this is a potential partnership that sets them up for a major acquisition later, in terms of if this Tomb Raider thing does well, they can then go to Amazon and be like, look how well this did, you buy them. And then they try and sell them for much more than they would have got now without having a game out there and a proven IP that's doing well. So this could be a strategic move where they're like, we'll keep the studio. They have this property that everyone loves and has potential to make a lot of money. And then once they start popping off, we'll then sell them because we'll get way more.
Yeah, and that right now, like you said, that they're looking to save a bunch of money. So that's why some of these studios are getting spun off right now, or getting sold. But once they maybe get some equilibrium with their costs versus their profits, maybe then they will slow down and try to build up the value of some of these other things, and then continue to sell them in the future. Because it doesn't seem like Embracer does have some like underpinning long-term strategy that's going to take over once they're back in the black. In the meantime, it's like, well, let's just try to make some moves here and there until we can coast, and then from there we'll look around and see what we could sell at that point. Because I think they're probably frightened that they're going to be right back in this situation, and they won't have a way out, because they have made successful games since they've taken over a lot of these studios, and that's not made much of a difference for them. So I wonder if they think like, hey, we can't make this work.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Respawn's Star Wars first-person shooter is canceled, but work on the next Jedi game, Black Panther and Iron Man, will all continue. This is from Rebecca Valentine at IGN. Today, EA announced a major company shakeup, and this was yesterday, that will result in roughly 670 individuals, or 5% of its workforce, losing their jobs. Excuse me. As a part of that same reorganization, Respawn's Star Wars first-person shooter in development at Respawn is being canceled. I'll say that that game was canceled. The team is still intact at Respawn, is what I've heard. So they will hopefully be able to take a lot of that work and shift it to something else, because what happened here is EA doesn't want to pay the licensing fees, and they don't, or in the very, there's already like licensing fees involved. They don't want to pay the licensing fee on the end as well, like sharing some of the profits, which they would have to do with Disney. They'd rather just take the time over the next several years to have Respawn make a game that is their own IP, I guess, and sell that instead and keep as much of that money as possible. It stinks though, Tam, because I said yesterday on this show, I've heard people that were working on the game love this game. They think it was very good. I talked to a couple more people last night who said that don't necessarily work at Respawn, but had a chance to try it or talk to people who have tried it. Everyone says this game was amazing. It's so hard to hear that.
It's a stealth Titanfall game, basically.
Yes.
Like, it is, if you think about it, and it is like the game that it seemed to be like the Mandalorian game without the Mandalorian, Pedro Pascal's Mandalorian. That is like the key kind of recognizable gameplay potential of coming from that character are stuff that they've already done with Titanfall and can expand on. The jetpack, for example, is, that's how the kind of like Titanfall pilots do a lot of the free running stuff. The smart pistol is something that you can imagine a Mandalorian would have, because they are tech focused, bounty hunters. And then, all the kind of like hallmarks of a good bounty hunter game are already present in Respawn's other titles that they have, generated acclaim for. Even stuff like the level design. Like Star Wars universes, and having like a potential, a level design with like, what's it called, cause and effect, like that kind of level. It sounds incredible. It sounds perfect. And also on paper, I described this, we talked about this on Spot On recently. It feels like one of those games that is set up to succeed from the outset. Like it feels like too big to fail. It's a first-person shooter, which traditionally is thought of as a genre that always sells, regardless.
Right.
So it has a very good chance of selling. It's a Star Wars IP, currently one of the biggest IPs in the world, and the most recognizable IP, and it's coming from a studio that has a proven track record of making not only good first-person shooters, but Star Wars games. So it's like, how is this not going to pop off so hard? It's going to be ridiculous. And yet it's still a candidate for like, we got to kill this, which makes me think like, it's the point that they're at is so desperate, where it's like the time and money it will take to make this amazing game is too much of a kind of sacrifice for them, or too much of an issue for them to wait it out. So they just need that money right now. And that goes back to like the immediacy of needing numbers to go up in the infinite growth cycle. Like it sucks.
Yes, it's very frustrating, and it does make you like, what, like, if Respawn hasn't earned the right to like work on what they want to work on, or if they have something that they're really proud of, which is, it does seem like that's one of the reasons that some stuff leaked about this a few weeks ago, is like they knew this was coming and they were actively trying to save it. So they were like going out of their way trying to save this game. It's Respawn. They are the backbone of what EA is doing in recent years. How have they not earned that? And it's because that's not how this company's thinking. They're just like, we don't want to share the money with Disney a few years from now, and it's a few years off, so it's easier to imagine saving money now than it is making money later. And it's very frustrating.
It's like, it goes back to how cyclical the industry is, right? Like, because there was a time where this exact thinking was applied to licensed IPs, where it was like, the only way we make money now is by finding recognizable IPs and working within those, because that's where the money is. And now we've reached a point where it's gone all the way back around, where these companies are like, oh, the cut is too much. The only way we make money now is by creating our own IPs and owning it entirely. That's like, what are you doing, man? What are we doing here?
Yep.
It's ridiculous.
And it's like vast. It's oscillating so fast back and forth between those like two schools of thought, and especially in a company like EA.
And then the stupid part is, in order to turn the ship and pivot it to a point where they're creating their own IPs again, they are cutting all the people that would likely be working on those IPs and making them good, and leaving behind people who live in fear of receiving the same treatment, and are probably not going to be as capable or like as enthused about making new IPs, knowing that they're doing it for a corporation, when then they could also just set up their own studio and make their own IP and have the same kind of level of risk, and maybe not even have to invest in it. It's such a foolish, like, short-sighted. I mean, I'm not a business guy. I don't understand this
It
stuff.
is short-sighted,
Maybe I'm
though.
just talking
That is absolutely true.
Yeah.
It is myopic.
It is ridiculous.
Yes. They
it is literally like we're gonna. It's that Eric Andre where he shot the guy and he's like, "Who would do it?" Whatever that quote is. It's like, you just kill the people that would have made this successful for you. What are you doing? And now, like, you tried to make some IPs happen and you sucked at it.
Yes.
Especially EA. Like, you're terrible at it. You are fundamentally bad at this. Like,
you don't. It's clear you don't believe in them when you put them out.
Yeah, and like, I'm not being rude. Like, they worked on Immortals of Avium. I think that is like that game. Okay, it's not as bad as people think it is.
No, of course
it's like
not.
It was just, it didn't work out. That should be a sign.
I mean, like, even like Mirror's Edge, like that was like, going much further back. It's like Mirror's Edge feels like it had everything it needed to be a success, and EA just couldn't navigate it.
How long before we reach the phase where it's like we tried to make new IPs, no one likes them because we suck at it, or like they're just not interested? Now what do? We have to lay off these people.
Yes,
like,
they're going to be back. They're going to be back in this boat in about a year and a half, 18 months. Yes, they will say something along those lines.
Like, EA has built what it is now based on sports games. They've lost the license to FIFA. They don't pay for the FIFA license anymore.
That's one of the reasons that they're looking at all this. Is what I've heard, is that they didn't have to pay FIFA and the game still sold very well, and they're like, well, let's just do that for everything, as if that's the same thing.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But like, that company is currently being carried by Respawn and maybe the potential of BioWare. People are still have some faith in BioWare, where it's like they're working on Dragon Age, and Mass Effect in the distance is the thing that is keeping people from absolutely setting fire to that company and being like, "You're done. We're not touching you. We're not paying attention to you. Goodbye."
Yep. People mentioned Vince Zampello, one of the founders of Respawn. He's an executive at EA now. I don't know. I get the sense that he is like busy. he's supposed to be saving Battlefield, so I don't know.
Yeah. Executives are one thing, and there's good executives, there's bad executives. I don't trust any executives, but you have to remember that beyond the executive are shareholders, who are the most unhinged people on the planet. And they ultimately are who need to be satiated. So you can say, like, Vince Zampella, clearly he loves Respawn. It's his studio.
Yep.
But if a shareholder comes along and is like, kill that game, that's the way, or they need to make decisions that please those shareholders, they'll have to do it. They will do it.
Because it's like, once you become an executive, and any sort of your compensation is tied to the stock price. Yeah, it's like, oh, okay. The way it is bad if the stock price goes down. You're right.
The way you become an executive is by showing the allegiances to the business and the bottom line at the end of the day. If you're not doing that, you likely will never be put into a position of decision making that it comes with being an executive. So I have got nothing bad to say about Vince Zampella. I've spoken to him a few times. He clearly loves games. He clearly loves his studio.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I also know how capitalism works.
Right. He's only got so much power to do that stuff.
Yeah, even the best of people will be twisted into what needs to happen.
So yeah, going back to that Star Wars game, it was just people talk about 1313 and like the Amy Hennig game, and it's like, yeah, word around those games, it's like, this could be something. The thing
just
with this
never
game
pitch a bounty hunter Star Wars
apparently
game,
not,
because none of them are making it.
Apparently the thing with this game is, no, it is something. It was something. It is great now, and I just broke my heart in half to hear that, because I was looking forward to this game, and I love the people at Respawn getting a chance to like just stretch their legs and show their stuff, and it's a damn shame that they're not going to get a chance to put that.
I am hoping and praying that somehow footage or like of it just appears somewhere.
That's yes. If anyone wants to leak that to me, please. I want to play it so bad. Please, hit us up, definitely. But hey, that Iron Man game, Black Panther, that's still happening. Star Wars Jedi 3 will still happen. Many of the people who apparently were working on this game, the first-person shooter, are going to be reassigned to those projects. Most likely Jedi 3. Yeah.
I would like to know, Iron Man, Black Panther is happening. it's coming from a studio that has not done any Marvel games up until this point, and they must now have seen the cut that Marvel takes from a studio like Insomniac and Sony, who has been making the best Marvel games. I wonder what the thinking behind that now is. Like, are they locked in and they have to do this?
Yeah.
And are they doing it knowing that they're about to get absolutely finessed by Marvel? Like,
what is that cut? Like, could you say, was that stuff from the Insomniac leaks? Is that
yeah, that was from the Insomniac leaks, but it was, I can't remember the exact number.
I can't remember either.
I've
been meaning to
significant.
Since this news. I've been meaning to go back and check. I do remember it being significant.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll have to check it and see that for myself. But what I've heard is, yes, the number is big, and it does cause these games to be kind of painful, even if they're successful to these companies, which is wild. Yeah. But we'll for Respawn, there's still some questions around like the future a little bit, because Apex Legends is kind of, I struggle to phrase this, because I said earlier this week or on another show, like, oh, they're maybe winding it down. People are like, they're winding it down. I'm like, I think they're looking towards winding it down more than they're looking at, hey, how can we make this big again? I think they are sort of losing faith in it at EA at the top level. And so they're like, how can we maximize the profits from this thing that is going to kind of slowly fade away? And that is a thing that is going to take years. It's not going to go away overnight or something like that. I just don't expect major investment from EA into Apex Legends. I hope that changes, though. That could change. Maybe they have a couple of new initiatives, or maybe Respawn's able to pitch something that makes sense. They're a creative studio. Hopefully they're able to pull that off. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we have a lot more headlines to get into. We'll get to all of that right after this. All right, we are back. More headlines, just as I promised. Guerrilla's Horizon online game reportedly not among canceled Sony projects. This is from Tom Ivan at VGC. Guerrilla's multiplayer Horizon game is reportedly not among a number of recently canceled PlayStation titles. Earlier this week, Sony Interactive Entertainment announced plans to lay off 900 employees worldwide, or about 8% of its workforce. In addition to the planned closure of PlayStation London studio, it confirmed that jobs would be lost at studios including Insomniac, Naughty Dog, Firesprite, and Guerrilla. Commenting on the restructuring, PlayStation Studios head and former Guerrilla managing director Herman Holst said the company was reevaluating how it operates and that unnamed projects had been canceled. Following the announcement, Bloomberg's Jason Schreier reported that a Twisted Metal live service game, previously in development at Firesprite, had been axed. Asked on Twitter if Guerrilla's Horizon game online game had also been canceled as part of the restructuring, he said that it hadn't. I think a Twisted Metal game, trying to get that to make sense these days, I could see that being a challenge. This Guerrilla online game, I suppose, or Horizon online game, I should say, Horizon is like one of their most popular franchises. I guess that they're going to give it a shot. I don't know what that looks like, so it's hard for me to be like, well, that makes a ton of sense. What do you think, Tam?
Yeah, I feel like the starting point of this kind of conversation is Sony invested heavily in the future of games as a service titles.
Yes, they did.
And I think when they were in that phase, that is when old IPs and new popular or not had the best chance of getting off the ground again, and that's probably what helped Twisted Metal get off the ground. Just enough recognition, the TV show, and then also like a plausibility that it could succeed based on being a unique games as a service title. There's not much else out there like Twisted Metal. And now we've gone, like I said, like we've reached a point in capitalism where even the things that they thought was definitely going to take them to success a year or two ago are not as viable right now. So they make the cuts, and I think that a game as a service title on the Twisted Metal IP is going to get cut before a games as a service title on the Horizon IP. That is just probably how it is.
Right.
That doesn't mean necessarily that the Horizon game is any more likely to succeed or even a better game, and it definitely doesn't speak to like the quality of the Twisted Metal game. It's purely a gamble on a IP that is more relevant and current than one that is floundering and is largely powered by nostalgia.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that a Horizon sort of expansion is still something that makes sense for them, kind of across the board. They haven't done the TV show yet, so maybe things get even bigger when that happens. They are clearly going to make another single player game, so reminding people and giving people a chance to explore that world in other ways, it makes a lot of sense. And also, Guerrilla is a studio that has multiplayer in their past. So, having them get involved in this and finding ways to express those competencies in a video game that now features their primary brand, yeah, all that stuff sort of fits. And I'm glad that it's not like, a ton, like, we're scrapping every project that we were working on. You started this initiative. I hope they see most of them through, because there's a chance several of them could be very good. And we got Helldivers already. And sure, we're not gonna get Twisted Metal, but I'm like, I know a lot of people aren't big on live service games, but let's let these ones actually see it through. I'm very curious to understand what a Sony and Guerrilla made Horizon online game could look like. Is this like some social thing? Is it like a competitive multiplayer game? I want to see what they think that should look like on a PS5.
What my question to you is, how is their faith in the Horizon IP reflected in the kind of audience and the interest level in it? Because if I remember correctly, was it the first Horizon or the second Horizon? Like, a lot of the sales were bolstered by it being a pack-in game, right? Like,
Yeah,
with
I thought
a
so.
PlayStation.
I think so.
Yeah, and like, I know a lot of people love that franchise. More power to them, but I do wonder, like, are the two hands, speaking to each other? Are the people like who are in charge of these going, these numbers are high, but also here's the qualifiers, here's what you need to know.
Yeah.
And also, like, that is my worry, because, like, I don't know, man, games as service titles, I'm of the opinion that it is not just hard to create new games as service title because you need a good, like, hook and IP, but also because they are lifestyle games.
Yep.
And we've reached the point now where people are so invested in existing games as service titles that to ask them to stop playing those or move to a different or join an additional games as service title is close to impossible. Like, if you're a Fortnite person, you are committed for life. I think of it in the same way that, remember when WoW was popular and everyone was playing WoW and they all had WoW subscriptions? Remember how hard it was for other MMOs to kick it? Like, no, and everyone really tried to just get a fraction of the World of Warcraft success. And it never worked. People had just enough for it to, like, function for a little while, and then they would just burn out and leave. And I fully think that's where we're at with games as service title. The ones that exist now and the ones that are good are what people have invested in, and new ones probably aren't going to work.
Yeah, they take a lot of oxygen out of the room. Yes.
Yeah, and I'm not being cynical. I don't think that it's impossible.
Sure.
But I feel like it's going to be an uphill struggle, and your IP needs to be absolutely popping off to an unbelievable degree, and then the game has to be incredible. Like, it's got to be familiar so that people understand what it is, but also completely distinct and unique. There's so many factors that need to fall into place so perfectly for a games as a service title to do well. And I just don't understand currently the level of investment that Sony has put into this genre. There are smarter people than me there, but, like, I fully am like, I don't expect very many of these to succeed at all, even if it is called a Horizon.
Yeah, it's and I go back to your point about how do we know that Horizon is popping off the way that it would be suggested by those sales numbers that we saw in the Insomniac leak. And I don't know. I'm with you where my gut tells me that's not the case. That a lot of it does come from, hey, the only way you could get a PS5 for many months when it was the hardest to get a PS5 was to get one bundled with that game. So a lot of people just went and got that. But also, I'm not a fan of Horizon, so maybe that could be coloring the context there. And I'm just not seeing, the actual big picture, and maybe a lot more people are into it than I'm realizing. I'm saying that's entirely possible, but I don't think that discounts anything you said. I think, yes, it faces an uphill battle. I mean, Chris Dring from GamesIndustry.biz just posted a tweet about Newzoo's top 10 games by monthly user of January. And it's all the games you would know that it's going to be. It's Fortnite at the top, and Call of Duty, GTA 5, Roblox, Minecraft, Rocket League, Rainbow Six Siege, Pal World, Apex Legends, Overwatch 1 and 2. Pal World, one of the biggest launches, and this massive thing out of nowhere, able to crack the top 10, got to number 7.
I feel like the way I think about it is the first few slots like Fortnite, Warzone, GTA, Roblox, Minecraft, and maybe Rocket League. Those are like cemented, locked in. You are probably not gonna move those, and the rest of the slots go to the flavor of the month. Like, and maybe you have like the names that you know are familiar coming up and down, like Rainbow Six Siege probably comes in and out based on like the content and like patching and that kind of stuff, and whether there's excitement being drummed up around the invitationals and the tournaments. But everything else there I feel like is flavor of the month. And I don't mean to be dismissive about Power World, but like I don't think that's going to be there a few months from now.
No, I don't think you're wrong.
It's going to drop out because something else will come in. Like, we've seen this happen so many times that it would be foolish to just accept that and think that you're part of the games and service furniture now.
Yep. Yeah. And, I don't know what this means long term for gaming. If all these companies are looking at this list and going, I don't know if we can get our game anywhere on that top 10, let alone the top 5. If that discourages a lot of investment, I hope not.
Yeah, the only strategy I can think of is like repeated short-term gains. Like, you just is the strategy we keep making more of these and basically get that initial like buy-in and investment and money, and then knowing that it's got a very it's got a half-life and it's going to burn out quickly, but then we have another one of those ready to keep chaining these like early adopter kind of gains. But then like at a certain point the kind of cost versus the reward, risk versus reward probably takes over, and it's like we're losing money, or like it's not worth doing this.
Opportunity costs. Yeah, I think that's it's and I hope that that most publishers realize that being afraid of opportunity costs and be like, well, if we don't go for the Grand Slam, why would we even do it? It's like, no, you got to figure something out there. There's got to be another solution to keep making games as the answer to your problems.
I think Marathon is going to be a big indicator of what happens here in this genre, because like to a degree it feels like Bungie's is set up in a position to be the one other company that could maybe pull off some sort of like Hail Mary, we made the one other game as a service title that can thrive. And if it doesn't, I wonder if it's going to have a situation where Sony's like slowly starts like shooting its children in the head and being like, if Marathon can't do it from the team that makes some of the best shooting games and has a known IP, you're done.
Yeah, I mean, we brought you in because you're the ones that knew how to do this, and then they'd be like, well, we'll lose faith in you very quickly. Last few headlines here. GTA 6 devs slam Rockstar Games for the return to office mandate. This is from Levi Wilson at Kotaku. Basically, there was a report that Rockstar is requiring in the lead up to GTA 6's finalization for everyone to return to the office 5 days a week. That seems like a silly thing these days, Tam. I don't get how we continue to get back here, because it's I'm someone who looks at things like, I just look at the results. If I don't care what process anyone goes through to like to make a thing, what is the thing? What does the thing look like? What is your work actually? What is the production of the time you spent doing this? I don't care where you did or how you did it.
I won't anything I say. I'm not saying this is what Rockstar is doing. I don't know the justification for why Rockstar is doing it. I think it could be for some companies it's a mixture of like, oh, we're reaching a phase where we need to get people into the office, and they believe truly that's the only the way that they can make a thing happen, which is probably what Rockstar is like. In order to get the magic in there, everyone needs to be face to face. They could be worried about leaks, like we're reaching the critical point, and they don't want leaks to happen, and they want to kind of really lock up the kind of network and the who comes in and goes out and where this information is going, and have proper overview or oversight over it. Maybe that's part of it. For vast majority of the situation where you see company is now trying to make people come back in, the reason they're doing this is because the real estate cost. They own these buildings, they pay for these floors, and they're not being used, which causes people in the higher up to just lose their minds because buildings and offices are so expensive
And
to maintain.
they're like caught in these leases for years.
Yeah, and they're stuck in leases, and they can't and it drives them mad that this money is just basically being pissed away, and it makes it even worse when the employees improve productivity or show no kind of like change in what they're capable of doing by being at home. Trust me, as someone who has been through a few company acquisitions, I can and has spoken to a bunch of people who has been through a bunch of company acquisitions. The building issue is huge. Like, it saves so much money if you can't get people in, you are just hemorrhaging money on something that is just sitting there. So I feel like a lot of it is also dictated by that.
Yeah. Some people in chat suggested that this is also potentially a way to get, around 5 to 8% of people to be like, well, then I'm gonna have to move on. And it's like a way of maybe getting a little bit of that layoff action without actually having to do layoffs, which maybe I think that's definitely a possibility. But they are like in the lead up to GTA 6. I feel like they're probably all hands on deck. I don't know. Like Sony did all those layoffs. The one studio we didn't see mentioned, Sucker Punch, the studio that likely has a game coming out the quickest of all of them with Ghost of Tsushima 2.
Yeah.
So,
but also like Sucker Punch, thankfully good on them. They, as far as I can tell, are quite lean.
Smaller footprint, definitely.
They're
a smaller $60 million to make Ghost of Tsushima or something like that.
And
that's
also like
wild.
Punching way above its weight.
Yes.
And point. Like they create games like, I won't say on par with Naughty Dog or like Insomniac, but I will say Ghost of Tsushima popped off in a way that people think of their game standing shoulder to shoulder with a Last of Us 2 or a Spider-Man game is beloved. And if they're able to be lean and make games that do as well as Ghost of Tsushima 1 did, they are in a really good position. And I feel like it speaks to the management of that studio as much as it does to, the quality of the individual developers and their work. Like, good on them for keeping their hands on the wheel and not being like, we made a game that popped off, let's grow massively and like make a games as a service title.
Yep. And people are also saying, hey, maybe that leak thing there's something to that as well. But it's like, they had people in offices and there were still leaks all throughout their history. So, I mean, if that's the reason, it probably won't work. All right, last headline we're going to get to today. Some Tekken 8 players express anger at the game adding microtransactions. This comes from Chris Cullen at VGC. I'll just do the quick version. Tam, it bothers me a lot when publishers and developers put out a game, give us review code, have us review the game as it is, and then a month later add the microtransactions so that it doesn't factor into most of the review scores. Kind of feel like we're being manipulated there. I'm getting pretty sick of it.
Yeah, I see it happening a lot. I see it happening more, and it's very sneaky. And it is like
uncool.
And like it's not gonna, if it continues to happen, like we'll adjust the way
we're gonna have to.
Like we will, like I've done it before where it's like, I don't think that this game is done. I think there's something missing, and instead of putting out a review, we've done a review, in progress, and that was just gonna happen. Where like, and our reviews in progress generally, like, they don't go up or down drastically because it kind of, for the most part, like there's nothing egregious that happens. But I feel like in a future where games as a service or where microtransactions are added later, you're going to have way more fluctuations in score. Like a game that is like a 9 out of 10, like a Tekken, that poorly does microtransactions a month later will drop to something lower, I imagine.
Yep.
So like, don't think you're going to get away with it scot-free, because we will pivot and make sure that people know this is happening.
Yeah, the one other caveat there though is like Metacritic only takes the first score if you adjust it later. So it's like they're like looking at that, but we can only control what we can control. And
I'm sure we can figure something out. If it happens enough, like I will have a word with people at Metacritic and be like, get ready.
Very good point. But I would like, let's little shame on these companies. Don't do this. Stop doing this. We know you're like, we're not your partner in the press, but if you make me feel like you're manipulating me, I'm just gonna get maybe a little bit more aggressive towards you in the future, because it really gets in my craw, and I dislike it.
Yeah.
All right. You know
And
what?
it's this really stupid thing to do for a game that has got so much goodwill now. Like
Exactly.
Tekken, it's a banger of a game. It's incredible. It's like one of the best fighting games maybe ever. And like just to do this is kind of like souring it.
Yep.
The other fighting game story that I don't think is on here is like and I didn't get super deep into it, but Bandai Namco added rollback netcode to Dragon Ball Fighter Z, and it is
They did.
busted. It is broken. Like it is like it. The way the implementation has, I've seen. Like I think what it's doing, like based on what I can see, it's like when it's rolling back, it's like taking snapshots of where characters are, but instead of that not being visible, like it's visible to the players. So like let's say you're doing Goku and you do a Kamehameha or like a instant transmission, and then it rolls that back. You will see like almost the frames of that move happening on the screen. It is so busted, and it is like I don't know how.
Oh man, look at this!
Happen.
It's like that. It's like winning a game of solitaire in Windows.
Yeah, it looks like Mugen on crack cocaine. Like it is wild. I don't know, and it's weird because I think I wasn't super into it, but I think they beta tested it and it was okay. Like it wasn't busted, and then they released it a few months later, and it's just like, what is this? What is going on? Why are there 800 Gotenks on my screen? Goji, whoever it is.
This is wild. All right, I'm gonna go look up some videos of this because it looks.
I just wanted to put it in there because I want that community to have a good game and continue to have that good game. And Bandai Namco, please fix this ASAP because that community has been supporting that game for a very long time. It's a banger of a game. Like just that is too many Gokus. That is too many Gokus. Just one Goku's fine.
Let me go. Did I not post the poll question from yesterday? Okay, I never posted the poll question from yesterday, everybody. This is what happens when Jan's out and I forget to do everything. So what we'll do is 2 poll questions for Monday's episode. So the first one is still, are you losing interest in buying video games? Because I just want to see, hey, I know it doesn't surprise me either, Slane. We were talking about, is the video game industry crashing? The only way that can really happen is if people stop buying games. Are you buying fewer games? We'll do that one. And also, have you ever bought anything from DK Oldies? I mentioned in the pre-show, got Superman 64 for Blake Club for Dan from DK Oldies. And it's got like a reputation among the retro gaming scene online. And when I did it, I'm like, this is my first time doing it. It really is weird, all the emails you get where they're just like, be my friend. Hey, you're important to us. You're the whole reason. New deals are live. Guys, I just bought something yesterday. You've sent me 10 emails.
Yeah.
Oh boy. All right. So we'll talk about that on Monday. And before we get to that, Tam, what do we have happening on Giant Bomb? All that good stuff. What do you have happening? Tell people where they can find you. Help me out here.
We're doing UPF, right? We're doing Final Fantasy. Is that what we're doing?
Yes, UPF. We're gonna play Final Fantasy. I'm going to begin Rebirth from the beginning. We'll play it for several hours, and I'll try to get some decent progress in there. I'm at least gonna play some Queen's Blood. I got to see that for myself. Yeah,
I think I'm gonna pop in and hang out for at least a little bit, maybe the entire thing. And yeah, so that's UPF. There isn't a Revengeance today. I think we're doing a big.
We're gonna do a longer UPF.
Yeah, and then we've recorded Jeff's, which I think should be up next week. Don't quote me on that. And then just keep an eye on the site. If you're interested, you can check out the latest episode of Spot On that me and Lucy did, which we talk about some of the stuff that we did here. Kind of like what is happening in the industry, why are we like this episode. And then next week we'll have all the regular shenanigans. And you can just find me everywhere tomorrow. You know what? I said this last week or last 2 weeks ago. I'm getting ready to return to streaming soon.
Yeah.
So if you want to follow me on Twitch, please do. TomorH. I mentioned this before as well. I've been working with Jerem on a bunch of new graphics and stuff, and it is so fucking cool. It looks so good. Every time he sends me something, I'm like, this is insane. How did you do this? But yeah, I'm excited for that.
Excellent. Tam, thank you so much for spending today talking with me about video games, man. I really appreciate it.
I love doing this always. I love being here with you and the Dudas, the best people on the internet, the best fan base.
Until next time, everybody, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye. All right.